Hi there, greetings and salutations. My name is Jake Query, and that is what I am predicting to be today, an extra salty Derek Schultz.
Sidewalk salty? Driveway salty?
Nope. No,
Salty?
although not a lot of that's been laid down in Marion County, but no.
You're not lying.
No, I'm guesstimating that you are going to be sarcastic Derek Schultz. Bitter Derek Schultz.
No one knows me in those terms. I'm never.
Because I'm guessing that you are incredulous over the news that the Colts are team run it back, right?
How can you be incredulous, Jake? That's my response to that. How could you possibly be shocked by this, right? When Jim Irsay released that statement on Sunday night, it was, an hour or two after that meaningless overtime win over the vaunted Jacksonville Jaguars. I understand people being angry. I understand people being frustrated. What I don't understand is basically the shock that was involved in it. I think people really thought that Jim Irsay was going to fire Chris Ballard and keep Shane Steichen, which I don't think he was. I think they could have lost that game to the Jaguars. I don't think that was going to be the plan. Colts could have been 7-10 this year, and I don't think that was ever going to be the plan. I think they were always going to run it back. And part of me is, more than being angry or frustrated, which I am both of those things, and I fully commiserate with Colts fans for feeling the same way. I'm just sort of settling into indifference. And it's almost becoming sad. Like, I am depressed for the current state of the Colts because you know this, Jake. I mean, you covered this team from Peyton Manning's day one all the way through his career.
Right.
I got here when I started really covering Indianapolis sports. It's when the Colts had just taken off. After the 2004 season, they had Manning had the touchdown record. They had gone to Arrowhead and won a divisional game. They had gone to the AFC Championship game in back-to-back years. They had just taken off. And from then on, there was this standard in town for what the Colts were going to be. They were going to be a 12-win team or more. They were going to win the division. They were going to make the playoffs, and they were going to contend for championships, which they largely did. 05, 06, obviously they won the whole thing. 07, 08, 09. And I know 10 would be the season that you'd say, they were 10-6, and they kind of struggled, but they still won the division, and they still should have won a first-round playoff game against the Jets had they not collapsed in the final minute. And now the standard is just, it's so low. The bar's barely off the floor now. And the fact that they're bringing back Chris Ballard for a 9th year, you tell me, maybe you and Jimmy and Eddie and the team over there at Urban One have looked this up. I can't even think of a comparison to a general manager with this lack of success that has gotten 9 years.
The GMs that came in at the same time as Chris Ballard that are still around all are with franchises that right now have a very good chance to win the Super Bowl.
Or have already won one.
Or have won
Yeah,
one.
or have already won. Yeah.
So, look, this is what I think it comes down to, Derek. It's one of two things. It is either that Jim Irsay has a very firm understanding of what all has gone on within his franchise and knows the nuances that we don't know because we're not in the building, and has a great trust that Chris Ballard is the guy that can get him over the top and he believes in the vision. Or it is that Jim Irsay is at a point, whether it be via health or age or whatever else, where he's completely checked out and he's like, you know what? I'm getting my cash. So be it. I don't think it's the latter. I don't. I think personally that Jim Irsay has a great trust in Chris Ballard. And quite frankly, I think a big part of that trust is because of the fact that, and I'm going to keep going back to this, I know that I'm a broken record when I say this, and I don't see it as an attack or an indictment, I should say, on a person's character. Jim Irsay has been around football his entire life, right?
Mm-hmm.
Jim Irsay's father was the owner of the team when Jim Irsay was the general manager of the Indianapolis Colts. This is the longest stretch the Colts have gone without a playoff appearance since 1988 to 1994. That 88 to 94 era, the general manager and the architect of that group was Jim Irsay. I think Jim Irsay has a very strong desire he has an itch that's never been able to scratch, which was to prove that he knows the general manager operations and architecture building of a football roster. And he has a general manager that allows him to still make football decisions he thinks are the right one to show that he knows the game of football. And I think that's what this is. I think he looks at it and says, look, we are going to get this right. We're going to get it right, and I'm going to stand on the mountaintop and say, see, I told you so. I think that's where we are.
I mean, DeForest Buckner mentioned the word ego, and he was talking about the players on the team, but are there egos involved in leadership as well? Yeah, absolutely. You want to be right. I think also what it is, Jake, I think we know that Jim Irsay doesn't want to be his dad. He doesn't want to make brash decisions. And I think the last time that he made a brash decision, he overcorrected in 2022, right? We'll make a comparison. We just had snowfall. We had half a foot of snow in Indianapolis. When you're driving in your car, you got to be careful when you're spinning out, not to jerk the wheel, right? Not to overcorrect. You kind of have to stay steady and not gas it up too much, or else you just start spinning around. He jerked the wheel and he slammed on the gas and brought in Jeff Saturday, which was ridiculed across the league, and it aged terribly, right? I mean, it aged the way that everybody thought it was going to age, except for Jim Irsay. And I wonder if he's hesitant because he went back and he's like, geez, you know what? I kind of, maybe I was my dad there. Maybe I made too brash of a decision and I got a lot of egg on my face. I don't want to do that again. I don't know this. I think Steichen being part of this helped bring Ballard back because I don't think he wanted to uncouple the general manager and coach again. And I don't think he wanted to fire Steichen after 2 years. I don't think he wanted to do that. I don't know that. But just given, the Colts head coaching position has been a very stable job. They had Tony Dungy for 8 seasons. They had Pagano for 6. They had Reich for 5. I mean, Reich got fired in the middle of year 5. That was a long run for him. So firing Shane Steichen after 2 years, even though this happens all the time in the NFL, hell, the Patriots fired Gerard Mayo after 1 year. That would be fairly unprecedented for the Colts. I don't think he wanted to make a brash decision there, and I think Ballard was part of that. But it's just there's no standard. Jim Irsay thinks his standard is still multiple Lombardis and the Colts being a championship franchise, but the only person that still regards the Indianapolis Colts like that nationally is Jim Irsay.
Correct. That's correct.
No one else thinks of the Colts as a championship franchise anymore. Everybody else thinks the Colts were Peyton Manning, and that was it. Well, and then when he was gone, that was bye-bye.
The thing that the Colts now are up against, and the thing I think deep down, even though he would never say it because he has a great love for Peyton Manning, the thing that Jim Irsay, I think, deep down knows is that he is now battling the stereotype, the image, or the narrative that the Indianapolis Colts are not a great franchise. They are a franchise that had one great player and a great era.
Yeah.
And that Manning was the one that was,
the centerpiece.
That Manning's greatness now is further illuminated and he won there. You know what I mean? Now, and Luck, you can go into a whole different thing now about, did part of Luck in the back of his mind was part of his retirement the fact that he looked at it and went, what are we doing here? I don't think that's the case, but it is something that can be said if people want to buy into that. Now, going back to what you said about, the Jeff Saturday thing and not being his father and all of those things, the reality is, Derek, that when Irsay looks back on some of the decisions he's made, one of them where he wanted to be loyal was when he brought in Pagano and Gregson for the 11 o'clock meeting where tears were shed and then they were attached at the hip. And there's this kumbaya photo, right? And then he realized, this isn't going to work. And he had an audit done on the culture of his building, and people determined that Ryan Grigson was the guy that needed to go. And so he got rid of Grigson. He kept Pagano, brings in Ballard, but he brings him in with a coach. It created all of this, non-symmetry. And I think he doesn't want to do that anymore. So I think he looked at it and said, I have a quarterback I believe in Anthony Richardson, but he needs Shane Steichen. And if he needs Shane Steichen, that means that I've got to have Chris Ballard here as well because I'm not going to break up the trio like I've done before.
And I think Irsay's mistake, and he's made plenty of mistakes, and I think even he would admit, I'm not just talking about his personal life, I'm talking about him, running an NFL franchise. When, after 22, he gave Ballard a life preserver, if you will, right? And they got rid of Reich, and they had the Saturday thing and whatever. He gave Ballard another chance to draft a quarterback right after that, right? So he drafted Anthony Richardson and extended the timeline. I think Irsay in his mind said, okay, this is a reset for Chris Ballard. Now, Chris Ballard's starting back at square one. And clearly, you're seeing here, it's only been 2 years since that reset, right? Which isn't very long. It's only been, barely 2 years with Anthony Richardson, considering that he's missed, 17 games so far. But in the fans' mind, this is year 8. We just completed year 8 for Chris Ballard. The fans might have agreed to give Chris Ballard more rope, but they didn't give him a hard reset like the owner did. And I think Irsay either is, if he doesn't know how upset fans are, then he's, I think, living in a cave a little bit. He's underestimating how PO'd Colts fans are right now because, even going before Ballard, the failing of the end of the Pagano-Grigson era where it was 8-8, 8-8, and then 4-12, that still weighs into the conversation. It's been 10 years of this crap, Jake. 10 years. They haven't hosted a playoff game in 10 years. They haven't won the division in 10 years. They haven't had a team that seriously contended for anything in 10 years. 10 years. That's a long time. Like, look at our hair right now. Look at me. I'm getting a little salt and peppery. You're already gray. Look at us. Look at a picture of us from 2014. I'll post one maybe even later today on social media. Look at a picture of us from 2014 and now. Like, 10 years is a long time.
They're the New Orleans Saints, right?
Yeah, where the one window was the Breeze era. Yeah, pretty much.
My point being,
paper bag on head the rest of the time.
Well, no, my point being, how relevant are outside of New Orleans? How relevant are the New Orleans Saints?
Yeah, no, you're not wrong.
They're just there, right?
Yeah, and Irsay thinks they're the Steelers or the Packers or the Niners, and they're not.
Right.
They're not, and it's sad because I think there was a time where if they weren't on that level, they were certainly like a prideful, stable, respected franchise.
Let me tell you something that I mentioned on my radio show. So if for the few people that listen to both, I apologize, it's going to be redundant. But I did not know of this. Color me ignorant. I did not know this. Did you know that there was a Netflix documentary show that followed Anthony Richardson as a high school quarterback?
No.
I don't think anybody knew about this.
No.
There was a show done in 2019. It was an entire season, 16 episodes, an hour long each, called QB1 Beyond the Lights. Okay. And it followed 3 quarterbacks. Basically, some Netflix group said, let's do a documentary where we take 3 high-profile, 5-star, can't-miss recruits and follow their senior year of high school.
Hoop dreams for quarterbacks.
Correct. The 3 quarterbacks. Deuce Hogan. This is why, by the way, when people are like, oh, my gosh, wow, 5-star recruit, let's wear the candy stripe pants and show up in their cafeteria and freak out kids. You just never know. Deuce Hogan, who's played at like 5 different colleges, Iowa, New Mexico State, whatever. He was a big-time recruit out of Texas.
Okay.
Bryce Young.
Oh, wow.
Out of California. Big-time recruit, number 1 recruit in the country. And Anthony Richardson from Florida. So I'm watching this, and Anthony Richardson plays at what seems to be somewhat underserved high school in the Gainesville, Florida area. Really nice coaches, nice kids on the roster, not a huge program. Mm-hmm. Almost looks like a boys club in terms of the resources and facilities. Makes you really root for the guy. And he's basically a single dad because he has a little brother. His mother works, and so Anthony Richardson picks his little brother up from school, and it's like his son basically, even though because of the age difference, and takes him home and cooks him dinner, and they watch TV together and they play Sega and whatever else. And when you're watching it, you cannot help but root for the guy because he's very likable, he's very respectful, he's very, quite frankly, life-wise, he's very mature. But he has very little individualized coaching. It shows him in practice in his senior year of high school, and he's throwing the ball, and he's mic'd up, and he says, man, I've missed 9 throws in a row. I overthrew that one, and then I underthrew this one. And I'm thinking, was this from August in Grand Park, right? But he doesn't have – and the coaches, you can tell, are really good guys, but they're more like life coaches. They're not necessarily football coaches. At one point, they have a rainstorm, and so practice is canceled for the day because they have no indoor facility. They have no gym to play, that kind of thing. So all of that is to say, and then he goes out in the first game in the documentary and he gets hurt. And he's out for the rest of the game. All of that to say, though, that when you really look at the backstory and you kind of feel like you get to know Anthony Richardson a little bit, you say to yourself, man, I really want this to have a happy ending. And when you're watching it, there are plays that he makes in high school where you're like, oh, my gosh, like this guy's, guys in the barbershop were talking about, did you see that move he made and the run he had? All of those things now, only 5 years later, are coming into play with Jim Irsay and the Colts because I think Jim Irsay looks at Richardson, sees those little plays that people talk about in the barbershop, and is fascinated and intrigued and intoxicated by it, pardon the pun, and he wants him to do well. And he's going to give him every chance to succeed, and that means sticking with the system around him. And he's going to, not Irsay, he's always going to be here, but the organization around him is going to sink or swim as Anthony Richardson goes.
But that's the crux of the problem, is that the last 10 years has really been about wish casting. There's no real plan. The Colts are just hoping that things happen. There's no plan. There's just, man, if Anthony Richardson can just stay healthy, he's never been healthy. If Anthony Richardson can just be more accurate, he's never been accurate. If our existing players could just show some leadership, they've never shown any leadership. If our general manager's process could just produce this result, it's never produced a result. It's wish casting. We're just hoping that these things happen just magically. Oh my God, wow, the Colts are fixed and everything's great and it's 2005 all over again. And it's not happening. It's not happening. We've been waiting and waiting and waiting, and sometimes you just have to call it. You know, like how many times the Colts are the franchise laying on the gurney right now, like how many times are we going to code them before somebody announces the time of death here and you move on?
Here's the irony in all of this. And I'm not trying to be a hypocrite because I, at the time, thought it was the right move, and I still understand that in the moment it was the right move. In the history of the Indianapolis Colts for the last 15 years, do you know the only decision they made where they did not involve emotion and they went strictly by the football business move?
Yeah, letting Peyton Manning walk.
Cutting Peyton Manning.
Yeah.
Cutting Peyton Manning. Ever since then, they've been living with emotion. But they didn't hesitate to cut Peyton Manning. Now, the irony of that is now the Colts are using the Peyton Manning era as the crutch to show that they're a franchise of stability. But they've made nothing but emotional decisions since and had nothing to show for it.
Yeah, I mean, we could do a whole show on how the Colts and mainly Jim Irsay mishandled and mistreated that, and the fan base too. I blame the fans too for mistreating that era of Colts football. The fact that was ever talked about as some sort of a disappointment or even in some circles as a failure has always been insulting and ridiculous and laughable. Well, they only won one championship. Okay, great. You guys want to go 8-9 again for the 10th straight year? Awesome. How you like this? Only won one championship? Would you rather have 04 and 05, or would you rather have this? You rather have 09, or you rather have this? You rather have Minshew throwing at Tyler Goodson? Is that what you want? Okay, great. There you go.
They brought back Tyler Goodson, by the way.
Here you go. Yeah, of course you bring it back. It's team run it back. Bring everything back. Everything's great. Locker room's great. We got the guys. We got the culture. Let's go. 8 wins. Bang. We're not bad. We're not bad, right?
We're close.
We're really not bad.
Close. They're really close.
So that's fine. That's the standard. Don't be bad. That's the standard. Even though they were horrible against the Giants, and they were horrible for most of the game against the Patriots. And this defense has been horrible for 3 years.
Well, Gus Bradley's out. We know that. The Colts are in
everything's fixed.
Search of a new defensive coordinator.
Everything's fixed. Get somebody in here, they're fine.
See,
they got the guys.
You're salty.
Okay, yeah, so you were right. I am a little bit salty. But, something else that I wanted to touch on, I knew we were going to do kind of the whole, 50,000-foot view or whatever of the franchise and on Irsay, but I also wanted to talk about, what DeForest Buckner had to say with the locker room, because I think that was pretty telling. I thought Michael Pittman Jr. had it. He talked about having a fractured back. I mean, he was clearly hurt, right, this year. But he mentioned something about, I think he mentioned Taylor and Buckner and maybe there was somebody, Quentin Nelson, was that the other one that he named?
Right.
By name as the guys, like, they set the example, and I wanted to live up to that. Look, I do think the Colts have some good players and some guys that under normal circumstances in a stable franchise would thrive or thrive more than they already have.
DeForest Buckner's a pro's pro.
Buckner is one of them. I still think Kenny Moore is one of them. I know that we bust his chops because he's a guard and who cares, but I think Quentin Nelson is one of those guys too. Taylor, I'm a little wishy-washy on. Taylor, some people have a higher opinion of Taylor than I do. I think he's leadership-wise, whatever. I think he's fine, I guess. But then you also have guys like, Zaire Franklin, who obviously his Q rating has gone basically all the way down to 0, I think, because of some of the comments on the podcast and just the way that he's kind of conducted himself. And I think there's something to the fact that the Colts brought everybody back and everybody was guaranteed their spot. There were no camp competitions this year.
Right. Well, that's been a big thing.
The only camp competition was Nick Cross, and that was because Nick Cross was so bad at the beginning of camp that there had to be a competition. There was no plans to have a competition for Nick Cross. Nick Cross was handed the job. And I think I think Richardson needs competition.
Well, and you're going to get that, right? I would anticipate a Justin Fields or a Daniel Jones or somebody like that is going to come in.
Not like an aging guy that has no future like Flacco, but somebody that can come in and kind of push him. I just think this franchise has been operating in this comfort zone for so long, and somebody needs to push them out of the comfort zone. And I don't know how to do that.
There's got to be a plausible explanation for this that I'm missing, so let me ask you.
Okay.
Why do players deny injury all year long and then as soon as the year's over with go, by the way, ta-da!
Yeah,
Why not just tell us that a month ago? Hey, guys, listen, I'm dealing with a back injury.
I kind of like the way Curtis Rourke did it, where I think his agent told people that he played with a torn ACL. Like Curtis Rourke didn't get in front of Zach Osterman or something.
Right.
Like, hey, man, like my knee was all effed up all year. I kind of like the way he handled it. And that was well after the fact. I mean, the IU season ended 3 weeks ago, right? But I do think Pittman at least has the track record where I think you can respect it. I mean, God, the track record for the Colts now. To be a leader in that locker room, the bar's not very high. Remember in the old days, you had to reach the Peyton Manning bar or the Reggie Wayne bar.
Listen,
or the Adam Vinatieri when he was still a functional kicker bar.
I remember,
and now it's forget it.
I remember, again, old man yelling at clouds here. When Manning was the quarterback of the Colts, this has always been the case in the locker rooms. Wednesday availability when the media's in there. I mean, that's the day that it's a day when players are coming in, they're getting treatment, whatever else, and the locker room is kind of their playground. I get it. Mm-hmm. You'd go in the locker room, and Marvin Harrison had his rack of snacks, and Edgerrin James always had 2 lockers, and one of them had a flat screen Xbox or Sega or whatever, and guys would be playing
Giordano
it.
in the defensive back room used to have a Nintendo in there, I remember. This
What's
was
that?
like 10 or 12 years ago. The defensive backs used to have a Nintendo in there.
I mean, and so it's guys are always in there. It's where they, it's a camaraderie place, right? Mm-hmm. But even with that, music would be playing, whatever else. And I kid you not, this is not hyperbole. When Manning would come around on Wednesdays to do he talked every Wednesday. When he would come around the corner, everybody would kind of stop for a split second just to see what the mood was. Okay, and then Manning would start whatever, and everybody go back to what they're doing. Zaire Franklin caught a lot of heat for saying the things like the podcast where he came out and said, I'd rather late in the year I want to play somebody like New York that we're going to roll, and and then they give up 45 to him.
By name.
When questions were being asked about the culture of the locker room, and I can't remember what player it was giving an answer saying, no, there's not a problem. Guys are going to do what they're going to do, whatever. All you can hear in the background is a ping pong table. Yeah. And I'm like, you're having a discussion about the professionalism of your locker room, and guys are playing ping pong in the background. Now, that's always been, like I said, those things have always been around, but time and place. Yeah. This particular group of players are not bad human beings, but they're bad professionals, many of them. They haven't learned how to be a professional. Again, doesn't mean they can't learn it eventually, but they haven't learned it yet. And now you run into the problem where you have timeline staggering. Because let's say Anthony Richardson does pan out. Okay, so in 3 years he's going to be 25 years old and hitting his prime. Well, at that point, you're going to have to replace your guard. You're going to have to replace your running back. You're going to have to replace 2 of your receivers. You're going to have to, hopefully at that point, have a tight end figured out. You're going to have to replace your 2 pass rushers. You're going to have to replace your entire linebacking core.
It's going to be hard. Yeah,
there's just no. I mean, it's all over the place, right?
I mean, they had aligned this so they could hit the ground running right now, and by right now I mean this past season that was another failure, right? And I don't want to make it all about Zaire. Actually, deep down, I like Zaire. I like his personality. I think he's funny and engaging. I think all of those things are great. We want players to be that way, right? Even if he sticks his foot in his mouth, and maybe he should pump the brakes a little bit. Do I think there's an ego there, and do I think there's a cockiness there that he hasn't earned? Yeah, of course I do. But I don't think he's the only guy in that locker room that feels that you would say that about. Right. I think he's become the poster child of that, but I don't think he's the only one that's in there. I think there's a standard that's lacking for just about everybody, and it trickles on down. When your position and your status is not threatened, why would you act any differently? Again, it's all about comfort. The Colts are just very comfortable being exactly where they are. And something or someone needs to push them out of that comfort zone. That's the only path to improvement for the Colts is to get uncomfortable.
But let me ask you this. Let's say hypothetically the Colts are not comfortable where they are, okay? Who do they have who knows different? Who do they have who's been somewhere other than this? And I'm not talking about the owner. Between the general manager, the head coach, the quarterback.
The core pieces. The only guy that I can think of, I think if I might have to look this up, I think Buckner's last season with the Niners was the year that they first lost in the Super Bowl to the Chiefs, right?
Buckner was on a good team, no question.
One season, though, because remember, before that, the Niners were really struggling.
Right.
Because it was the post-Harbaugh, in between Harbaugh and Shanahan years where they kind of went in the tank a little bit. I can't think of anybody else unless I'm missing one of like their deep reserves who was on a Super Bowl team or something like that.
Zaire Franklin.
Certainly not their
Zaire
leaders.
Franklin never played anywhere else. No. Jonathan Taylor never played anywhere else.
No.
Quentin Nelson's never played anywhere else. Kwity Paye never played anywhere else. Michael Pittman never played
Braden
anywhere
Smith,
else.
Ryan Kelly.
They know no different.
No.
Chris Ballard, never been a GM anywhere else. Shane Steichen, never been a head coach anywhere else. Right?
They don't know what they don't know.
Right.
Right? And that's, it's such a multifaceted. I mean, Jake, we could spend 6-7 hours on this cycle, and I guess you get to do that with your radio show, right? Like analyzing all of the pieces of this, because it's a big mess, and you're kind of untangling everything. But I think the core problem is that whether they're doing this intentionally or not, they are comfortable where they are. Everyone in that position has stayed.
Well,
in that
they can
position
say
and
they're not
remained in
comfortable.
Yes, exactly.
Right.
But they are, because their actions speak louder than their words. Words are just words. Who cares? You have to show me, and nobody is willing to do anything. Nobody is willing to step in and upset the apple cart or do anything.
But here's the thing: what changes?
For now, nothing.
But I mean, fans that are like, "That's it. I'm done spending my money." The second they win 3 in a row, everybody's back, right?
Yeah, I mean, they'll change Bradley. I think there'll be some position coach changes, because generally when a coordinator gets changed, some of the position coaches even leave on their own. So I think there'll be some changes there. But this talk about, well, the Colts are going to be more aggressive in free agency. You buy that? Colts going to be more aggressive?
I'm curious to ask this tomorrow, and I think I'm going to go and ask this question to Chris Ballard. Do you operate under the same salary cap as the rest of the league? Do you have the same maximum you can spend as the rest of the league?
Yeah, and see what he says. Yeah. I think also, the other question that I would ask Chris Ballard is that clearly your process needs some change, maybe even wholesale change. Are you prepared to make, in year 9, are you prepared to make wholesale change to your process? Because I think the answer is no.
Right.
I don't think they're changing anything.
Right.
These guys are all under contract. You're not going to start, like I saw a tweet yesterday, well, if you cut Zaire Franklin, you save $500,000.
Right.
What? Jim Irsay's got that in the backseat of his car in a bag probably right now, right? $500,000? Give me a break. They're not doing that. They're not cutting guys. They're not. This is going to be largely the same team again. I do think that they'll bring in some more outside free agents. But, Jake, they don't have as much flexibility as they've had in past seasons because they extended all these guys.
Right.
So they don't have the cap room that they had a couple of years ago.
They're like 15th in the league in cap room. They have 15.
Yeah, they're in the middle of the road. They're not the cap space champions like they've been the last couple of years. So,
do you have food over
Yes,
there?
I do. And actually,
I'm taking the one on the right.
It was primarily this one.
Yeah.
Okay. It was
the other
primarily
one
hot.
spitting all over.
Spitting all over? No, I'm not.
What do we have here, though?
So,
fabulous.
okay, let me tell you a story. So I went to go pick up my sandwich at Hoagies and Hops like I usually do. They're closed Mondays.
This is unbelievable.
So I went to go pick it up the night before. And they closed because of the weather at 4 p.m. And I was like, darn it. I pulled up and it was black. The lights were off, and as it should be. It was pretty serious weather conditions on Sunday night in Midtown. So I called Christina the next morning and I said, hey, is there any chance you're going down to the shop? I know it's your off day. I know they're closed or whatever. And can whip something up for Jake and me for the show for Tuesday. And she said, yeah, I'm actually down at the shop now. I'm about to start shoveling. I said, well, I got a snowblower. So let me, pop it in the car. It folds up, whatever. Pop it in the car and I'll drive right down the street.
So you're the hero of the week.
So I came down and helped snowblow the drive, not only for Christina and Hoagies and Hops, but the entire corner of 42nd and Boulevard. I snowblowed. There's not really an appropriate way to say snowblow, is there? Like, it sounds bad. Like, yeah, I blew the whole neighborhood. Snowblowed. Because even snowblowed sounds weird. Do you want me to come over and snowblow?
I'm putting a hot dog. I'm eating a hot dog like this, and you're using me.
So Christina made my whole family cheesesteaks yesterday because I came over and did this snowblow. She's just awesome. She's an awesome friend, awesome community partner, neighbor, the whole deal. And I was happy to help. And Donnie, the KM, had done a lot of shoveling before I got there, so he did the line's work. Kitchen manager. What I have here is the chili cheese dog. So they got dogs at Hoagies and Hops as well. And I think what you notice, Nathan's all beef, right? But you notice that their wieners are larger than what you would get normally speaking. Like they have larger wieners that they serve. But this is house-made whiz, house-made beer chili. Oh, geez. From Chili Water, tap room with the Pilsner. So that's what they mix into their chili, and it's delicious.
Very good.
And the whiz is excellent, too. They have a couple other dogs. They have the Philly Freedom Dog, which is like they put cheesesteak on top of it, which is really good that I've had before. They have a couple others on the menu. So I know we talk about the Colts Sandos. I know we talk about the steaks, right? Because that's what Hoagies and Hops is known for. They're a sub shop. But they also do delicious hot dogs and delicious sides as well.
Listen, the sauce is the deal here, right?
42nd and Boulevard. And right there on the southwestern edge of Midtown. My hero of the week actually was DeForest Buckner. And I don't want to give him too much credit here because I think the Colts defensive line, not necessarily Buckner, but I think the Colts defensive line was one of the real underwhelming aspects of this season. If the Colts are going to succeed this year, they needed better quarterback play than they got. Duh. But they also needed a better pass rush. And across the board, the numbers pass rush-wise, outside of pressures, I guess, were down. And a lot of that's not with Buckner. A lot of that is based on the fact that Kwity Paye's just a guy. He's okay. He's good against the run, whatever, but he's not a sack specialist. Dio, all these other guys, they're fine. They're league average level pass rushers. So that doesn't all fall on Buckner. But I do appreciate that Buckner was probably the only person in the locker room that really said what he needed to be said. He said the thing about egos. He said the thing about a bunch of individuals. He said that this is the worst defense I've played on. Like, those words carry weight and they matter.
Are you saying that there might be some players on the Colts defense that were one-hop wonders?
Yeah. And that is our brew of the week, yeah. Sorry. Chili Water Brew. One-hop wonders. One of their core 4 beers. So one of their DeForest Buckner beers because he's a core player. But this is actually a very successful beer and winning beer. It's
so
good,
smooth,
right? Yeah. Really, really good.
And actually, that goes really well with the sauce there.
Again, I'm not usually an IPA guy, but all their IPA selection at Chili Water is the best.
You go to Chili Water, this is the best thing about Hoagies and Hops. You can go in there, especially, football game day with the playoffs upcoming, whatever it might be. You order your sandwich, and then right there attached to it, Chili Water, you can get it on draft, you can get the cans, whatever it might be. And they have a wide array of different beverages. Derek and I have sampled a lot of them, whether it be you want more of like a Mexican lager, they have that. You want more of, a fruit or a sour, they have that. Then right here, the ale and lager that is the one-hop wonder, which is obviously an IPA. A little bit of hop to it, but a smooth hop. Very, very good.
Very smooth, very good. Chili Water Brewing, right next door, the tap room right next door. And I know Penn State, Notre Dame, Christine and the rest of the crew are geared up for that. They have their jazz band there that night too, but they'll have the game on.
What night is that game?
Thursday. And then the other game's Friday, right? I think they're both on their standalone games. I think. Notre Dame, Penn State, I know is Thursday.
Is it?
Yeah.
Okay.
We can talk about that next if you want. We'll also talk some college hoops and some Pacers as well. Vince is all excited. He came in. You lead in Pacers today? And I said, yep. And, of course, we didn't. We led Colts instead. But the Pacers are over 500. We'll talk about that as well. Corey and Schultz just getting started here. Episode 218, presented by Ballard and Wood Financial Group here on the ISC Sports Network.
Which games are we going to tonight?
You know we cover all sports in Central Indiana. Hop in. It's going to be a long night.
Bailey & Wood Mortgage Lender, proud partner of News 8 Sports Hummer.
Hey, AC!
Nice snap.
Mortgage is a snap! Duh!
Bailey & Wood, a lending hand for Wish TV Sports.
Welcome back. Bailey & Wood presents Corey and Schultz here on the ISC Sports Network. Alongside Jay Corey, I'm Derek Schultz. Happy New Year. Probably the last day that we can say Happy New Year, right?
What's your dad say?
Well, my dad says, hope Santa Claus is good to you until, like, St. Patrick's Day.
Okay, so
He watches the show every week. So
how long does he go? How long
Hi,
does your
Dad, I
dad
love you.
go with Happy New Year?
I don't know about Happy New Year for him. It's always been hope Santa Claus is good to you. For my dad.
I think personally, this is the thing. The most depressing, but at the same time most anticipated day of the year for me was yesterday. Because I'm weird like this. I love Christmas. I love everything about it, but I love the build up to Christmas.
Yeah, me too.
By the time the last gift is open and it's 5 PM, I'm like, okay, done, over it.
Yeah.
And then, but you're like, it is nice though because now I'm still going to get like days off for New Year's. But New Year's was weird because New Year's Day was like the middle of the week.
Yeah.
And you went right back to work on the 2nd, but then you had a weekend right behind that. And I hate January. What is there to look forward to in January?
But here, I'll tell you.
So I'm like, you know what? Let's just let's get on the treadmill right now and let's just get that bad boy going.
But glass half full. My first real work, I went back to work technically the 2nd, but half of our staff was off. I was catching up on emails. There wasn't a lot of like work to be done, right? My first real work day, like back to work day, was yesterday, and it was January 6th, which is way better than starting January 2nd.
For sure.
Because
No,
sometimes, after New Year's Day and you're starting and it's like a Monday, January 2nd, you're like, ugh.
Right.
4 weeks from right now, it's still going to be January,
Right.
There's something depressing about that. So I like the way the calendar sat as far as that was concerned. But wanted to shout out our friends at Bailey Wood Financial Group, 855-350-HOME. BAWFG.com. Proud to be the presenting sponsor once again for Corey and Schultz. And Mike Wood and his team will do a great job in helping you out. I mean, Mike, when you talk about hanging in the middle, Mike knows it with his Dolphins, which is basically what the Colts have become, where the Dolphins win 7, 8, 9 games every year, and they never really do anything. And that's kind of where this purgatory that the Colts are in too. But your home doesn't have to be in purgatory with your finance rates. You can refi through Mike Wood and his team or get that pre-approval for a first home mortgage at BAWFG.com or any of their many Indiana branch locations. You want to talk basketball first? You want to do maybe quickly on college football?
Here's the thing on college football. I said when the playoffs came out, it's
Ohio
going to be
State's winning it all.
Ohio State, Notre Dame.
Yeah.
There's your final.
I mean, you might be right. Yeah.
Nobody coming within 2 touchdowns of Ohio State.
Yeah, it feels like
2 scores, I should say.
it feels like Penn State and Notre Dame are just playing for second place,
Excuse me.
right? That feels like
Yes.
the second place game. I think Notre Dame and Penn State are both very good. I don't think they're great. Ohio State at their best is great.
Yeah.
What I will say is it was say what you want about the fact, Carson Beck wasn't playing, right? It was a backup quarterback. This wasn't a vintage Georgia team. And I could have told you that before the game. Like, Georgia all year long, there was just something that was off about them, outside of the fact that they continued to dominate Texas. That was still a really important win, I think, overall for Notre Dame to kind of graduate from the narrative of, well, they fail in every big game. You know what I mean? There was a kick return. There was a strip sack. There were some things that, the ball bounced Notre Dame's way. I'm not going to dispute that. But they largely pushed around Georgia. And Georgia doesn't get pushed around. So, sorry,
I don't know why I'm
allergic
sneezing.
reaction
Sorry.
to the
Man.
Sugar Bowl.
Well, you start talking Notre Dame, I get allergic reaction.
Yeah, I guess so. But I think you got to give them credit. And all the injuries that they've had defensively for them to still maintain it. I mean, Al Golden, as their defensive coordinator, has done an amazing job. And Marcus Freeman, who I was real, are we sure this is the guy? He not only looks the part now, it seems like he maybe is the part, because look at where Brian Kelly is with LSU and look at what Freeman's done with Notre Dame.
He looks like a cool guy, right?
Yeah, my wife's got a huge thing for him.
Excuse me?
I think a lot of wives do. He's a very good-looking guy. You don't think so?
I mean, yeah, he's
a well put together. I mean, when he's in a suit and everything, like he's a former player. He's smart. Everybody likes him. He's got a great personality. He's a good looking guy.
He rides the haircut too high.
No, I think Marcus Freeman's doing just fine. I don't think Marcus Freeman needs our haircut or fashion advice.
He's got great teeth.
Yeah, I wasn't really focused on his mouth, but yeah, I'm not going to dispute that.
Mm-hmm.
Not going to dispute that. So Notre Dame and Penn State, and Penn State's still fighting that narrative that I think Notre Dame beat Georgia, so they had sort of their breakthrough. Penn State's still waiting for theirs under James Franklin.
Is it me or, the Notre Dame-Penn State game is literally the battle between two coaches whose the perception of them have gone in totally opposite directions. When James Franklin first got to Penn State, he was kind of the underdog guy. People liked him. He'd come from Vanderbilt. And it's like, how can you not like this guy? And he's kind of boorish and arrogant. And then Marcus Freeman takes over at Notre Dame, and people are like, this guy was just handed the keys to this, and he's too young. And now, like, it's hard not to root for the guy.
Yeah, I mean, Franklin's done a good job there. And I know about his big game failings, but overall he's done a good job. And it would go a long way to beat Notre Dame and play for a national championship. But I think Penn State sort of operates where Jim Irsay thinks of the Colts. Like, I think Penn State thinks of themselves as being on, like, the Packers-Steelers tier.
Right.
And being like the Alabama and Ohio State tier. And I don't think anybody naturally – like, Penn State has respect, right? People – traditional power. I would call Penn State a blue blood. But, I mean, Penn State is closer to, like, IU basketball than they are to Duke.
Who is Penn State?
Am I wrong about that?
Who is Penn State's basketball equivalent?
Kansas?
Kansas?
No, because Kansas is like in the top 5 like every year.
I know, but Kansas also falls short every year, for the most part.
Yeah. Let me think on that.
Louisville? One great coaching era, been chasing it ever since. Had some splash here and there.
And
I guess
80s,
you did that.
And it lines up timeline-wise. I mean, I guess I'm more into that comp, I think. I think Louisville's pretty close. Louisville's a pretty good one.
Georgetown.
Yeah, but
they're better than Georgetown now, though, right?
Georgetown hasn't really been nationally relevant in 30 years. I know they had that run in the like late 2000s where they had like the Hibbert teams and things like that, but for the most part, Georgetown's been down.
Right.
And Penn State was down, but then they kind of came back up and then down, and now they've been back up again. So they're consistently good. I don't know. That's just how I feel about Penn State. Speaking of college basketball, let's talk actual college basketball. Nice win for IU at the Palestra.
Yeah.
Shooting the ball better. Maybe some cause for optimism here. 3-1. USC's not very good. They're coming to Bloomington.
Derek, ironically, Indiana's offense might be flowing better without, and this has nothing to do with Malik Reneau individually, but you take one of the low-post players away, and it forces you to kind of spread the ball around. That might be, maybe Mike Woodson now sees that light and goes, you know what, that's how we're going to
It's kind of a forced change, right? But maybe it's the change that Indiana needed. Look, they're too talented to be playing the way that they did for large swaths of November and December. And maybe they're finally just showing that now. I still think it absolutely should be a tournament team. And I think it should be a team that contends for the Big Ten. I do. You can laugh that off if you want. I think Indiana should contend for the Big Ten. I don't see a reason why they shouldn't. Illinois has started to be really good. I think Purdue's starting to find itself too. And there are a couple other teams, Michigan State, Michigan. I still don't know what to think about Oregon. There are a couple teams at the top, but they're all close.
Right.
Like, I don't think Indiana's far off. And they were picked to finish second in the league for a reason. Speaking of Purdue, they crushed Minnesota and Northwestern, who aren't very good, but still they crushed both of them. But they got to go to the rack and play Rutgers. And Rutgers has 2 pros. Like, it's not a good team outside of – they got 2 guys. That's it.
St. John's?
But that's a tough team to play.
Penn State? St. John's?
St. John's would be a lesser version of Georgetown to me. And I think Georgetown falls short. Yeah. I like the Louisville comp, even though I think Louisville and Penn State, the way that they operate has been very different.
North Carolina State?
Yeah, North Carolina State, though, they haven't had enough relevance. Like, Penn State's been like a top 10 level. I know NC State had a fluke run to the Final Four last year, but for the most part, they have not. They've not done anything.
I still think Kansas is pretty good.
Kansas is too good. Kansas basketball is up here to Penn State football. Kansas basketball is unquestionably one of the 4 best programs in America, whereas you would never say that about Penn State football.
I don't know, Derek. College football programs, historically speaking, in no particular order: Oklahoma,
yeah,
Notre Dame,
Michigan. Alabama. You'd all put them clearly in front of Penn State.
I don't know that I would put Michigan clearly in front of Penn State.
Really?
Ohio State, yes. You're the one that I was talking.
Michigan clearly in front of Penn State. Yeah, clearly.
They've won what? One.
They've won one championship since 19. Well, they've won two because Brady. They've won two championships since 1949. Right.
Okay.
But Penn State has how many in their history? They won two with Joe Pa. Right. That's it. They win anything else?
Well, how many did Michigan? I mean, I don't know how many.
Michigan has like 11 or something.
Do they really?
They claim. Yeah, they're the winningest all-time college football program.
Yeah, that's fair. But
I mean, Michigan won a lot of national championships before penicillin was invented.
Right. I mean,
but they did
they
win
were
them.
like taking trains out.
You know, Michigan was the 1904, 1908, 1889.
They had a huge rivalry with University of
Yeah.
Chicago, right?
When people were dying on the football field in every game, Michigan was a power. I shouldn't make fun of that, I guess.
Do you think they really died on the field?
Oh yeah. Like 19th century football was extremely dangerous.
They're
They
like-
tried to get it banned.
They're like
nationwide.
Tommy Hilton's questionable with Black Plague.
Well, no, I mean they were dying from the collisions because they had helmets that were.
Oh,
like
I thought
this.
you meant like from because
yeah,
they didn't have
had
penicillin.
helmets that were like napkins, and when you crash into somebody, you know, head first, I got cheese whiz in my hair. This isn't going to protect you.
With your head, it might.
Butler's losing skid as well. You know, somebody was mad at me. They went like, "Aren't you ever going to mention Butler on the show?" Here, I'll mention Butler. Their losing skid is a month long. They've lost 7 straight games, and they go to Providence tomorrow night. We're taping this right now on early Tuesday morning, who always gives them problems. And it doesn't look like there's an end in sight
Derek,
for Butler. I don't think they're going to be able to
I
steer them back on
understand.
course.
I'm going to repeat something that I got absolutely crushed for when I first said it. I understand. I totally understand the financials of it and why they had to do it. Okay? So, from a logistic and practicality standpoint, I understand it. Butler never, though, should have left the A-10. The A-10 should have been their ceiling of league they play in. I get it from a money standpoint. But somebody pointed out best to me, East Coast kids are not going to come play for Butler, and Midwest kids do not want to go play in the Big East.
I'm fine with Butler making the transition that they did. I think you had to. But Butler can't operate in this space where they're just happy to be there.
Right.
And that's where they've been operating. And I have all the respect in the world for Barry Collier and everybody else. And I know now that they've moved on to Grant as the new AD. But they've got to – this is big boy. And if you want to be big boy sports, you got to pay big boy money.
Right.
And they're very slowly coming around to that, I think. The last thing that I saw, they were near the bottom of the Big East in spending.
And I mean, how much NIL money could Butler have?
Yeah, not a ton. Yeah, not a ton. But again, if you're there, if you want to compete, you got to compete.
How about
I'm not asking them to be villain over UConn, but there's no reason why Butler can't be Providence or Marquette. There's no reason.
How about the 6 players at UConn, by the way? Penn State, UConn.
UConn's too good now. UConn's too good.
How about the 6 kids at Florida State that are suing Leonard Hamilton because they were promised $250 in NIL money and they never delivered on it?
Yeah, and think about all the people that didn't sue.
It's where we are now,
yeah,
right?
You get promised stuff, and it doesn't end up happening. Let's talk Pacers so Vince will get off my back about it. Pacers are over 500, 19-18, beat the Nets. They've won 9 of 12 since that Charlotte debacle. I mean, I don't think it's a coincidence that Andrew Nembhard gets back in the lineup and they start playing better. I think they're going to be okay. I think they survived the tempest that could have sunk the season before it even got off the ground. Remember, people were calling for like Rick Carlisle's head, and I was kind of like, all right, like I'm upset too, but let's pump the brakes. But then again, 10-15 was not where they wanted to be. That said, this storyline with Tyrese Halliburton, he's there, he's gone, he's there, he's gone, is going to continue until he consistently performs at a high level.
Because when he plays at a high level,
he's great,
they're
and they're
almost
so tough to beat.
Correct.
They're so tough to beat. And again, they don't need him to score 31 points and dish out 12 assists every night, but you can't score 7 points either. And too often there have been the no-show games, but I like where they are. I think Ben Shepherd coming back I think has been important too. They're playing. They're a much better basketball team this last
Who's this guy at the Laker game in the stands? He looks famous. Behind Halliburton.
Is that Jet Li?
Maybe. Who's this gal? She looks famous too. That's what happens when you play in
That
LA.
almost looks like Costco Drake. I don't know. That might be somebody really rich and famous that I don't know about.
Costco Drake?
Yeah, like a like a warehouse version of Drake. Doesn't he kind of? A little bit? Little tiny bit?
He does.
Yeah? Can you guys see that up here? Oh, you guys are showing our faces. They can't even. Yeah. Can you blow that up on the screen, Vince? There you go. All right. Okay. Yeah, you can kind of see his forehead is cut off, but behind there, like he's
He
kind
actually
of got the
kind of
beard
looks
thing.
like Vince.
Yeah. Okay, yeah, that's definitely not Jet Li. That's like an elderly person that's standing there. Sorry, that's not right. I would assume anybody sitting courtside in Los Angeles for a Lakers game,
Correct, is famous, right?
Is doing pretty well.
Yeah.
Is certainly doing better than a podcast co-host in Central Indiana.
I mean, I have decent seats for the Patriot game.
I was talking about myself. Yeah, I was talking about myself. Quick hits when we come back. We got the IU Indy Jags report and an exciting development involving Jake and me when it comes to the Jags later this month. We'll talk about it next. It's Corey and Schultz here on the ISC Sports Network.
At Bailey and Wood.
Welcome back. Corey and Schultz. Happy New Year. Hope you had a great holiday. Hope you got a break. I feel for people that have real show up, have to physically be there jobs.
Right.
Because they don't, my wife is an RN. You don't really get a break when you're like that. But the people that have desk jobs get a little bit of a breather, and it's something that I think I took for granted for many years because, even you, and I know people are going to laugh at this, like Jake, yes, it's a radio show and he gets to talk about sports for a living, but it still sucks going to work on New Year's Eve and doing a show. It sucks going to work on December 26th and doing a show, right? It's still work. It's a job. You have to prepare. And everybody else that is in sales or whatever, they're like this for 3 straight weeks. Like they turn into their couch. So if you did turn into your couch, I hope you took advantage of that because some people don't get to take advantage of that. That's all I'm saying. Even though Jake works 30 hours a week.
I work New Year's Eve.
Time for quick hits. The Jaguars actually fired people, and not just their defensive coordinator. They fired Doug Peterson, their head coach, and they kept Trent Baalke, which I think was a surprise. After some initial success, Peterson, remember the first year they rallied and made the playoffs with Trevor Lawrence. They beat the Chargers in that wild card game, and then they started 6-2 in 2023. Remember the Jags were favored to win the division last year before Houston and Stroud came on his rookie season. Since they started 6-2 last year, the Jaguars lost 19 of their last 26 games. They went 4-13 this year.
Yeah, it's been
so Baalke got another year. He's 25-43 since taking over as GM before the 2021 season, but he'll have to find a new head coach there in Jacksonville.
Jags just feel like they just spinning the wheels, right?
Well, you worry that, and I know they're very different quarterbacks. You worry that Trevor Lawrence is kind of falling in this Alex Smith category.
No question.
Where he's good, he's just not good. He needs to be in a perfect situation to be great.
Right.
And Alex Smith had a great career, but were you winning a Super Bowl? You can get to the NFC Championship game with Alex Smith. Are you winning a Super Bowl with Alex Smith? Probably not. I'm telling you, I think Lawrence is special, but there's a little tiny part of me, because I was so convinced he was the next big thing, that wants to believe that that's there, but as the sample size grows larger, it's kind of okay, if not now, when?
Right.
Not that is the pillar of stability, the Jacksonville Jaguars franchise. Did you see this Tyler Cherry injury? I know IU brought in the Cal transfer quarterback who's going to have a chance to start. So it's not like the cupboard is bare. They brought in a different quarterback from somewhere else too, through the transfer portal. But Tyler Cherry, who I think a lot of people remember from Center Grove, and was a high-level recruit. He had a non-contact knee injury, which is never good.
Yeah, it's never good.
In preparing for the Notre Dame game. He was a 4-star prospect out of Center Grove, and I think originally was committed to Duke and then ended up at IU. But still, one of those guys that I think maybe for a while we thought, kind of like Taven Jackson, might be the heir apparent, and that's going to be delayed if it happens at all.
And Taven Jackson is transferring as well,
UCF, right? I think UCF, for Taven Jackson.
Yeah.
Good for him. I think he handled himself as well as you possibly could.
He did.
And he came in. He was huge in that Washington game.
It's big.
And he came in and played well. In garbage time against Purdue, I think he threw a couple of touchdowns to make the score 66-0. So good for him. Elephants in Germany are enjoying leftover Christmas trees. Did you know this?
Really?
So the elephants at the Berlin Zoo, they're given Christmas trees. And what they do is, they're so big, they can toss them around. So they throw around these Christmas trees. The zoo only takes fresh, unsold trees because they don't want people to get like chemicals and stuff on them. And this, according to the Berlin Zoo zookeeper, they don't just serve as food, so they eat them too. They also keep the animals occupied. They fight with them, they rub themselves against them, and they throw themselves over the Christmas trees and do various other things with them.
They eat them?
They're very happy
Think
about
about
it.
it. Like, you think about how fresh your breath would be.
Yeah.
And then you also have like homemade.
It feels like one
toothpicks.
of those things. Like Christmas trees should taste good,
Right.
right?
Right.
But they don't.
How do you know?
Well, I mean, they somebody has tried to eat a Christmas tree, I'm assuming, at some point, and just decided we're not going to do this as human beings, right?
Am I the only one that when it's December 24th and you drive past like a hardware store or a grocery store and they have all the Christmas trees up front that were unsold, that you feel sorry for them?
A little bit. Now we know we can just throw them in an elephant enclosure and everything will be fine.
Yeah, I mean, I'm
That's
sure
all
they
you
love
gotta
that.
do.
By the way, it is time for the IU Indy Jags report. A lot of basketball and a little swimming and diving. What better in January than to go indoors into a natatorium and watch swimming and diving? The IU Indy Jags report, of course, brought to you by IU Indy. Division I athletics right here in Central Indiana.
great
You're
price.
talking about local products, great price, all of it. IUIndyJags.com/tickets is the website. IUIndyJags.com/tickets. Men's basketball. Lost a couple of them to start out the year, losing to Youngstown State. Then they went on the road, lost to Cleveland State by 6. 2 19-point games, by the way. Paul Zaleskis, who continues to lead them in scoring. I don't know why I can't talk today. Tamaris Brown also had 19 and 7 boards in that game against Youngstown. But here's the most important thing. Thursday, 6:50 in the Jungle, 6:30 actually. Thursday, 6:30 in the Jungle against Detroit Mercy for IU Indy men's basketball. Women's, you're looking at them right there. Lost a close game to Detroit Mercy, but came home to beat Robert Morris 56-46. Katie Davidson returned from injury, had 13 points. So, too, by the way, did Nevaeh Foster, added 13. They now go on the road for a two-step. They go to Oakland, then to Northern Kentucky, back home on the 15th of January against Wright State in the Jungle. So the 15th for the women, and then again, Thursday, 6:30 for the men, IU Indy, and you're talking about local players, Division I players right there and very affordable at the Jungle, up close and personal college basketball. Also, the natatorium, men's and women's swimming and diving, Friday at 5 o'clock, Saturday at 10 o'clock at the natatorium, the renowned. You can see right there the listing on the wall of all of the Olympians that have come through the natatorium because it is a world-class facility and your chance to see swimming and diving, which is super exciting to watch, especially swimming like in the tight heats. Awesome to watch. They're going to be taking on Youngstown State Friday, 5 o'clock, and then again on Saturday at 10 o'clock in the morning over at the natatorium. IUIndyJags.com/tickets.
Jake and me, 25th for Metro's afternoon.
Got to put this in my phone.
Yep. Matthew and Maine's coming.
Oh, really? That's
So
cool.
if you guys want to come to IUIndyJags.com/tickets, I told Lauren, so they're prepared. It's kind of like when the president visits extra security and all of that. I just wanted to make sure that they had everything aligned. Corey and Schultz are going to be here.
What time's that game?
Let's make sure that, people don't freak out. I think it's a 2 o'clock start.
Okay.
I have to go to IUIndyJags.com and check it out.
We walking over together?
I think it's a 2 o'clock start. Yeah, we'll walk over. Okay. I'll park and we'll walk through Midtown there. We come back on the show, Chateau Kitchens, Spider Bull Bleep, and we will wrap up this first edition of 2025. Corey and Schultz, ISC Sports Network.
Hey, AC, which games are we going to tonight?
You know we cover all sports in Central Indiana. Hop in, it's going to be a long night.
Bailey and Wood Mortgage Lender, proud partner of News 8 Sports Hummer.
Hey, AC,
Nice snap.
mortgage is a snap. Duh.
Bailey and Wood, a lending hand for Wish TV Sports.
Back for a final time here. Bailey and Wood presents Corey and Schultz. Sorry, I thought Jake was going to take it, and then I remembered Jake never takes it. So why would he?
I
do
lead
anything?
every show off.
He's Chris Ballard over there. I mean, why would he? Why would he change his approach?
Look, I mean,
if it benefited the show.
I like our guys. If I get fired, I get fired. You know, when he said, if I get fired, so be it, that was the guy. He knew he wasn't going to get fired, right?
By the way, I don't know if we mentioned this. You said that you were going to go tomorrow, but Wednesday at 9 a.m. We're taping this right now early Tuesday morning, but Wednesday at 9 a.m., so about exactly 24 hours from now, we'll be talking to the media will have a chance to talk to Chris Ballard, and it'll be the same old nonsense. Chateau Kitchens. At Chateau Kitchens on Instagram and Facebook for before and after pictures, chateaukitchens.com. Home transformations, that's what they're in the business of doing. They've transformed my home in Midtown. They can do the same for you, whether it be your basement, your bathroom, your kitchen. Obviously, kitchens is what they specialize in. Hell, it's called Chateau Kitchens. Stephen Moore and his unbelievable team can take care of you. Just read the reviews online. The reviews are stellar. I think they got 4.98 stars out of 5, and there's always going to be that one guy, right? Chateau's got tremendous reviews, and in 2025, if you're looking to make a big change and a transformation in your home, they're the people to give a call to. So head on over to chateaukitchens.com. Proud sponsors of Bite or Bull Bleep. We give a statement, go back and forth whether we bite or it's Bull Bleep. Let's go. Statement 1. There will be a new Colts head coach and general manager for the 2026 season. Bite or Bull Bleep. If you had to bet on it today.
No, Bull Schultz.
I want to say yes, right? But I'm kind of with you. If he hasn't gotten fired by now, like what if they go 9-8 next year?
They're going to go 10-7.
What if they're the 7 seed in the AFC next year?
Right.
You going to fire them?
They're going to go 10-7.
Anybody think that?
That's it.
Now,
here's the problem, Derek. The problem in the
10-7
AFC, the problem in the AFC is this. Pittsburgh, probably a fluke playoff team, right?
Yeah.
Houston, probably a fluke divisional winner. But Cincinnati,
they're not going to be as bad as they were this year.
Cleveland was decimated by injury.
If Miami gets a Tua healthy for the whole year, which I know is asking a lot, Stroud's going to be better. Stroud's not going to be as struggle as much as he did this year either. So I think you know what? Pittsburgh is in that 8 to 10 win range. Pittsburgh has a winning season every year, or 500. Well, they can't be 500 anymore in a 17-game schedule. But yeah, I'm with you because why would I think otherwise?
If they're 8-8-1, it's at 500.
Statement 2. This is the year someone in the AFC finally gets the Chiefs. Bite or Bull Bleep. They're the 1 seed, home field.
No, Bull Schultz. They're the only team of the bye. They're going to win 2 games.
I'm going to buy it.
I mean, Buffalo could go in there and beat them.
Baltimore
could go in there and beat them.
Do it.
Yeah, Baltimore.
And Lamar really, and I hate doing this because he's such a fabulous player, and I don't think individual success should be predicated on team success. But with where Lamar is on the doorstep of winning a 3rd MVP, you have to have that team breakthrough moment at some point. Right? You have to. Manning had it in 06 or even 03.
What did I tell you?
Winning the first
didn't I say like a month ago, this felt like the year that the Baltimore Ravens would win the Super Bowl?
Yeah. I think it'll be Buffalo, but yeah, I think Baltimore is right there too.
Poor Detroit. Doesn't it feel like Detroit's kind of backpedaling?
They crushed Minnesota the other night. That was a really impressive effort. But yeah, all the injuries. Yeah. All the injuries, it's tough. It's always tough to feel like you peaked around Halloween. And I think that's probably how Detroit feels. But we'll get into Super Bowl stuff later on. Statement 3, the Pacers will firmly be a playoff team. Bite or Bull?
Oh, buy it, yeah. Nowhere to go but up.
Firmly?
Nowhere to go but up.
Firmly means top 6 seed to me. Firmly. I don't think they'll firmly be a playoff team. I think the Pacers will be at the very least in the playoff round, play-in round. Firmly to me, like the Boston Celtics will firmly be a playoff team.
Doesn't firmly sound
like
the
New York Knicks will be a playoff team.
Doesn't firmly sound like it would be a small school that's in the NCAA tournament, 15 seed.
Tofu.
The 15 seed out west.
I like extra firm tofu when we make tofu.
They're 28-4.
Thanks to our great sponsors.
Take on Kentucky.
Chateau
These games
Kitchens.
Thursday and Sunday
Bailey and Wood
in
Financial
Spokane.
Hoagies and Hops, Chili Water Brewing Tap Room, and our pals at IU Indy. For Jake, I'm Derek. That's Vince and Charlie, Jordan, the rest of the crew. See ya next time here on Corey and Schultz, ISC Sports Network.
At Bailey and Wood,